this? What's this? There's color everywhere. What's this? That's galloping down there. What's this? There's no way this is real. I think they're talking. Must be something in the air. What's this? What's this? What's this? They've broken into song. What's this? They planned it all along. What's this? I think the pink one might be coming at me with her hair like cotton candy. What is going to happen to me? What is this? What's this? They gather all around me and welcome me with glee. She offers me a choice that I can stay here if I please. It's all so much I swear I can see magic in the air. The smell of apple pies is absolutely everywhere. My hands, my feet, now horns and hooves and marks and wings. I never want to leave at all. A darker part inside of me is lighting up. I want to go and see it all. I love it, oh I love it, oh I love it, my new home. What is it called, what is it called, what is this paradise I found? What is this? Equestria?
Welcome to Lunar Echoes. I'm your host, Clockwork.
And I'm your current guest host, Skybolt.
And today is our first broadcast on Ponyville Live's Lunar Radio.
Yes, and part of that first broadcast means that we are going to introduce you to our podcast and explain where you can find more about Lunar Echoes and our staff.
That's right, Skybolt. So while we're here, why don't we tell the listeners who we are and what we do?
That sounds like a plan to me. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Skybolt. I make brony music, mostly pony parodies, and I'm also a voice actor for several brony projects in the works right now, so hopefully you'll see more about that later.
And as you already heard, I am the main host of Lunar Echoes. I also do a little bit of project work in the fandom. I haven't gotten to much of it. I do write fan fiction on the side. I help edit fan fiction. I review fan fiction. I also listen to a lot of music and comment on it. But up till now, aside from the podcast, haven't really been involved with the fandom too much.
But you know what? We need more and more fan fiction editors every day because there is a ton of it out there, and just a little bit of fine-tuning could put a better spin to it.
Ain't that the truth? In a few minutes, every pony out there can hear more about us.
But first, our announcements.
Another new animation came out over the holiday week called Where Are You? By Alstiff, featuring bat ponies. It's a strange, cute, and very unique animation which we recommend you check out.
And a brand new pony parody song came out based on Disney movie Frozen, a Let It Go cover about Nightmare Moon by our very own Awkward Marina. It's a very awesome song, and you should go have a listen to it.
Also, check out Aqua Marina's recent song, Entropy, all about Discord. As usual, check our show notes in the future to view it.
Discord is howling at the moon, or she in this case. And, of course, the Elements of Brony Part 2, for those of you who've been keeping up with it, has just released. Check out our show's notes later on to view it.
So, I say we should get on with the show.
I think so, too.
And speaking of the show, I think I should tell every pony out there exactly what the show's about, since most of you may never have heard of it before. Well, as you may know, as I've already introduced, I'm Clockwork. I'm the owner and main co-host, podcast host, I guess you could say, of Lunar Echoes. It's a podcast mostly about fan stuff for the fans. For example, we typically talk about and do interviews with famous musicians, artists, and we try to get some of the fanfic writers out there too. We also sometimes do weekly microcasts, which they've slowed down, but we mostly cover miniature subjects there. We have major podcast episodes that come out on a bi-weekly basis, usually every Thursday, and now also appearing every Friday on live stream on Lunar Radio.
It's going to be great. We're very happy to be a part of Lunar Radio and are very excited for the podcasts and new things that we're going to be bringing to you in the future.
Speaking of in the future, how about we focus on the past? Our past.
That's a good idea. How about you, Clockwork? Where did you come from and how did you join this crazy thing that we call the Brony fandom?
Well, I actually come from the state of Pennsylvania.
Ooh.
How did I get into the Brony fandom? It actually started over my birthday in May. So for those who don't know, I'm 31 years old. I'm probably one of the older podcasters out there, although I'm not the oldest. I think Dusty Cat beats me by a year or two. Maybe 3.
Or 10.
Or 10, never mind. one or the other. Manly man that he is. But
his mustache is probably younger than you. Probably. It may or may not have been a part of him when he was age 7, so we'd really have to do some hunting and pecking to find out.
Well, anyway, I actually got into the Brony fandom again. It was my birthday. It was in May, and despite Dusty Cat's unknown age at this moment, hint, hint, whisper, whisper, or the age of his beard, I actually didn't know about that. What started was back in May, I had a friend online who kept hinting at me. What he actually did was he kept sending me these pony memes, and I obviously didn't understand them. One had Twilight Sparkle with a book, one had Rainbow Dash and saying Gay Pride for All, and just weird stuff that I just didn't get because I didn't understand what the ponies were. I just thought it was some weird thing going around the internet. You know the internet, it happens. From cats that shoot lasers from their mouth to really, 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 really freaky stuff that we don't want to talk about. At least not on this podcast.
No.
So that's kind of what it was. It started as memes, like right after I turned 31. And I just kept getting these memes over and over again. He kept sending me weird stuff. Well, then he sent me a link to the first episode. And I'm like, what's this? He's like, oh, it's My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. You should watch it. And I thought he was rickrolling me. For anyone who doesn't know what rickrolling is, it's a prank. Basically, when they pull one over your eyes or try to make you watch something stupid.
And then you end up seeing the very famous Never Gonna Give You Up song by Mr. Rick Astley, an 80s icon.
Well, I didn't get rickrolled. I actually got frightened for a few minutes because the My Little Pony came on, and I'm like, I immediately hit pause, and I'm like, I'm not going to watch this. He's going to make fun of me. I mean, granted, I mean, hell, I'm openly gay. It doesn't really matter to me. He's openly gay. I just figured he was trying to make me watch some sissy thing and then make fun of it because he does that. Well, he used to do that. Not as much anymore, but you know, he was pranking a lot. So he's like, no, you have to skip to this point. And I like, okay, fine. He kept goading me into watching it, and I waited 4 days before I ever looked at the actual episode again. So I skipped, like he told me to, past the opening song. The acting was okay. And the more I was listening, I'm like, that voice actress sounds really, really familiar. So halfway through, I think it was episode 7, maybe, I realized I had a problem.
Yeah.
Because I had kind of marathoned through a couple episodes in less than a day.
You caught the bug.
I caught the bug. It was really funny, though, is I actually didn't pay attention to any of the credits. Because I was so engrossed with the show that I kind of had to watch the next episode, had to know what was going on. And then, of course, it got confusing with winter wrap-up, and then autumn, and then, what, summer?
Yeah, the seasons weren't clearly distinguished in season 1. It's like, okay, autumn, and then winter, and then spring? Wait, when is the summer sun celebration? I am so confused.
Exactly. We have a couple theories about that, including a microcast coming up soon, but you can all hear that later. So what eventually happened was I marathon through the first season, then the second season, then the third season, and then I wanted more. And I mean, I literally had gone through all the first 3 seasons, and I thought, well, there must be more, since season 3 just came out. And I found out that there wasn't a season 4 until sometime in the winter, and I'm like, no!
Oh, right after a season. That's the worst time to discover ponies.
And then it turns out, well, see, it was the middle of June when I finally watched this.
Okay, that's true. So you got a little closer.
Wasn't that far in, but it was really irritating. It's like, no, this is such a good show. And of course,
need more.
Yes. It grew on me. At first, there were characters like Rarity and Spike that I just didn't like too much, and then they grew on me quite quickly after a dog and pony show and Suited for Success.
Yeah.
Not so
Rarity
much.
was golden in season 1 and 2.
She's golden now in season 4. Sort of.
Yeah. Finally, she's been given a solid episode in season 4 with, was it Rarity Takes Manhattan?
Yep.
That's right. Oh, she deserves so much love.
So that's sort of just how I got into the bronyism, but I didn't know actually what a brony was until July. Right, and it's a sad tragedy kind of thing, but my uncle passed away. Ooh. And I drove all the way to Ohio, where I ended up seeing one of my old friends and a cousin of mine. And I was talking about the pony thing, and I told them, oh, this is a really cool show. And they're like, oh, you're a brony. I'm like, what's a brony? And they started telling me that they're these freaks, and they said the word freak that have dirty things with My Little Pony. And they accused me of basically being the same thing as a furry. I'm like, well, I'm a furry, but I'm not that kind of furry. I like the art. I like the idea of it.
At least with bronies, they've distinguished separate terms for the subject matter.
apparently. So, I mean, it was weird, and I kind of felt bad about liking the show, and then I went back home, and then I got online, and I just started looking into it, and I found all this art on DeviantArt, all these videos, and I just couldn't get enough, to the point that I turned my DeviantArt account back on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, awesome!
Because you had finally felt the magic of friendship.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really freaking awesome, because I'd never, ever, well, I gotta be honest, in my 31 years, I've never had any real close friends that lasted too long, or that didn't live really, 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 really far away.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of those things. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. So then I found out there was this whole group that I could totally belong to. And I did. And I started getting involved with them and trying to get more and more information. Well, then I found there were these local groups, and they didn't meet very often. So I wanted to get to their next meeting, but every time they had a meeting, it was either on a really bad day for me, or it was on a day that was just, I was working. At a time I was working, because I normally work a 4 to 7 job. Or, well, I'm sorry, not a 4 to 7. I said that backwards. 7 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay, yeah, that makes a little more sense.
But I worked a crazy job at the time. Well, I still work this job, but point is my hours were normal hours, and they would have their cookouts at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and that'd be impossible for me to ever make it at that time. So I started talking to people in there, and then I found out they were on Google+, and I sort of got into the fandom bronyism that way by meeting different bronies through Google+, including my future co-host on my regular podcast.
We'd like to point out that Google+ is not a sponsor for this podcast.
Correct. Google+ is not a sponsor for this podcast. So that's how I sort of ended up getting into it, but I wasn't fully immersed yet, to be honest. What happened was the last week of July and the first week of August, I learned about BronyCon. I wanted to go.
Yeah.
But circumstances beyond my control prevented me from getting there.
Finances?
Well, actually, I could have went with finances. I had no problem with that. My roommates, I live with 2 other roommates, and they have 3 dogs. One of them does.
Oh.
The dogs don't do well by themselves over an entire weekend. So someone had to be here to take care of them. So I, unfortunately, due to responsibilities, had to stay home. And I figured, there's always next year.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and shrugged it off, was sad about it, but not too long after BronyCon, I learned more and more about the fandom through podcasts. And I really have always wanted to do a podcast myself. So I was like, oh, this is something I can do finally. So I just had tried to put one together. It failed. And then 2 weeks later, I met my first co-host, who is currently on temporary leave for anyone who needs to know this. His name is Lazy Chords. At least that's his screen name and his code name within the Pony Bronies.
That's his fandom name, and that's really the only name that matters.
Correct. So I met him. We hung out, and really in a day I proposed that we do a podcast together. 2 days later, we did our first episode. And we talked about how it happened. But that's kind of how I started the podcast and exactly how I got into the fandom. How about you, Skybolt? Why don't you tell every pony out there how you got into the fandom?
Well, first of all, I'm happy to be here for my first podcast with Lunar Echoes and Lunar Echoes. It's actually quite fitting for me because I actually discovered ponydom more or less through podcasts as well. I was a regular viewer, is that the right word? A regular visitor to memebase.com back in the summer of 2011, long time ago. But it's a time that a lot of older, quote-unquote, bronies like myself will remember as the Great Exodus, or possibly the Great Evangelism, because during that downtime between season 1 and the magical discovery of bronydom for all these crazy college guys and gals that are like, hey, maybe this kid show is actually something worth investing a little time into and watching. So it was spreading all over the internet, all of ponydom. As a regular of Memebase, of course, bronies became a meme-generating machine, especially after the fallout of 4chan. For those of you who don't know the full story as to how bronydom was born on 4chan, we'll cover that sometime. It's an interesting one. And memes were all over the place, so much so that I started seeing all these memes everywhere. And believe it or not, this is the very first time I ever heard about My Little Pony Gen 4, is I saw a meme pop up, and it was of this cotton candy pink pony with straight, darker pink hair. And at the bottom, it said, because cupcakes. Literally, that was my introduction to the Brony fandom. And so many more memes did follow after that, and eventually it got its own site on meme base. I'm like, okay, what is this thing? Like, I've heard of this, so now it's in my memory. It's sitting there, and I'm like, okay, this is weird. I go away from it, and then a regular podcast that I listen to all the time, and I have for a long time because I was a big fan of Halo growing up, and I became a big fan of Red vs. Blue, for any of you who know of it. It's made by Rooster Teeth Productions, and Rooster Teeth started putting out their own podcast a couple years back. And so I was listening when they brought on a new person to their staff who was joining their Achievement Hunter site, a site dedicated to basically, it's mostly fun videos, but it also helps teach people how to get achievements in certain video games or go through levels that are particularly hard or weird to figure out. Or if you have some achievement that's a collectible, they have very good maps covering those. Achievement Hunter is not a sponsor of our podcast. I'm just a big fan. But I was listening to that podcast, and I still remember it. It was podcast 126 or 128, and they brought on this new guy, this very loud, cursing New Jerseyite that was a part of one of their new shows, Rage Quit, which is not for younger listeners. But he was a very profoundly vocal brony. And so he came on, and one of the founders of Rooster Teeth and Red vs. Blue, Bernie Burns, was expressing his absolute distaste that the word brony was popping up all over their website like a virus, just showing up in the forums, showing comments. And he's like, what is this thing, Michael Jones? What have you done to us? What is this pony thing that is spreading all over our website? And so he went on to explain, like, no, man, it's the new season, basically the frontline coverage. All bronies heard it first, and it's probably the first sentence they tell to anyone who discovers, like, oh, what's a brony again? It's, oh, man, it's the brand new series of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. And it's amazing. It's Generation 4, and it's way better than all the old generations of the 80s. These aren't these, big cow-looking candy-colored mascots anymore of the soulless toy company that we all know as Hasbro. In fact, it's actually pretty awesome, and it has great voice acting and directing and writing, and it's by a certain creator who touched a lot of your childhood favorite shows, Miss Lauren Faust. And so I was like, okay, now this thing, which I've listened to all the time, we've got this. Wow, okay, I really need to figure out what this is. Now I'm hearing about bronies on my favorite podcast at the time, and so I go on to Know Your Meme, which was I believe still is, a partner site of Memebase, and there was conveniently this brand new video they just released called Know Your Meme, My Little Pony, and I'm like, okay, let's see what this is all about. And so I watch the video and get its 7-minute primer on the magic of friendship. And finally, I'm like, okay, this has reached a certain breaking point. So honestly, there's got to be something to it. So I sit down, like everyone does, and I watched the first 2 episodes. Oh, I'm sorry. I should say I watched the first episode intending on cutting it there, like everyone else. And then it was a part 2-er. And I'm like, I gotta know what happens with this nightmare horse, whatever this thing is. So I reel back. I got nothing going on. This is August of 2011, so I'm enjoying my last couple of weeks of summer before college started up again. And I'm like, I might as well watch the second episode. I've got nothing going on today. And so I watched the second episode. And then I watched the third episode. And then I watched the fourth episode. And then by the end of that day, the end of that weekend, I had shotgunned all of season 1. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I just done? I've watched 10 non-consecutive hours of of the newest series of My Little Pony. What is this? What am I doing? And it wasn't until I checked back on Memebase and started going through the catalog of memes that suddenly they were all making sense to me. And I start laughing harder than I ever have at the normal Memebase. And I'm like, okay, I understand now. There is a thing behind this thing. And so luckily for me, I joined at a time that was only 24 days away from season 2. So my speculation began, and I started people pop up these things about, oh, the new villain, the new season 2 starter, about this like snake or dragon creature guy named Discord. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is worth, following, watching. I don't have the hub, but I have the internet. And as any good brony knows, bronies are pretty technically savvy people. So you can usually find an episode via totally legal or otherwise means online if you look hard enough. And I ended up following all of season 2 as it came out. And I really wasn't. It's different. I would call bronies any fans of the show outside of the target demographic of, young girls under the age of 10 or whatever. Even pretty much most boys I'd consider bronies. That's just my own terminology. I'm not sure what adult female fans feel about the term Pegasisters. I know there's a division amongst the fandom. I usually default to brony because I like to make everyone comfortable. I want us all to be bronies. We're a family. It's not about gender stereotyping. It's just about one term because, Pegasister can be as much a brony as any other guy. However, I wasn't really that involved in the fandom as we all know it. I really didn't hear much music or anything until a good way into season 2. In fact, I wouldn't say it was until after the Hearthswarming Eve episode, when I finally discovered Equestria Daily, did I start really getting into the thick of fan fiction, into the thick of the brony music and artwork and all that. It was mostly just memes and the episodes for that entire 6-month gap between August and January. But then when my second college break hit, and there was also a 4-week lull in episodes between the Christmas episode and whatever followed after it, I was like, I could use a little something else for my fix. Let's see if there's other brony things on the internet. And so, getting more and more involved in Equestria Daily and all that good stuff, I started consuming and, at least consuming member of the fandom at that point, and the rest is history.
Well, that's interesting. Actually, that's probably the most interesting introduction to the fandom I have heard as of yet.
It's a pretty good story, I like to think.
So did you attend Everfree Northwest?
Surprisingly, unfortunately, no. I wasn't thick into meeting other ponies. I wasn't really into meeting other bronies for a while because I really didn't share that much in public. I always kept my internet life pretty separate from my real life. For reasons that now seem silly, looking back on it. I guess I was a bit more afraid of whatever prejudices I might face, and it turned out I discovered a lot more accepting people in my life than I realized at the time. So probably if I had known that, I would have gotten more involved earlier and could have made it up to Everfree 12, which honestly had a buttload of guests for its time, especially early in the fandom like that. And so, but, say lovey, you can't change the past. But luckily I did make it to Everfree this last year, and boy, was that a fun time.
Yeah, weren't you featured there as a musician?
Oh, I wish. I actually do have an application in for Everfree this year, so hopefully, we'll see what happens. I didn't perform at that Everfree, but I did perform for the first time at Sac Brony Expo, which was this little first annual and probably only convention in Sacramento, California, my hometown here. So that was fun. I got to perform an hour set of a bunch of my silly parody songs and things, and participate in some other panels and things. And so if people want to see, I actually do have the video of that up on my channel.
And exactly how did you get into the musician aspect of it all?
Music was an interesting thing. For me, I first started getting into brony music. Two things. The first real brony song I heard, and I'm not sure if anyone still remembers this, but it was a video called Rock My Pony or Rock Your Pony, something like that. And it was one of those soundbite sort of compilation songs that use a bunch of different scenes from the Best Night Ever, the final episode of season 1. And it combined it into a really awesome drum beat sort of synthetic kind of sound. And it was just such a fun video and such a great song. I'm like, wow, this is a thing. Bronies are actually making music about this now. But for the long time, that was the only song. And then much more later on, when I was getting more involved with Equestria Daily and actually consuming music, the first musician I really discovered and got into was Aviators. And Aviators at his late 2011, early 2012 start in Ponydom, he came out with some pretty solid songs right there at the beginning. Songs like Friendship, songs like Second Chances, I believe is the name, the Trixie song. And yeah, so just some really good, really solid songs. And luckily he's kind of in my vocal range. And so someone like me who's been singing to a steering wheel as he could drive was perfect. I'd have him in the car, listen to him on CD because it's still my first car. So it was way too young to have any kind of cool MP3 jack or anything built into it. And so, yeah, I started listening to him, and then soon I discovered Tombstone and all the others, including a lot of lesser known songs. Like I would go through the music of the day, and I would go through the vocal hits and just cherry pick what sounded good to me. I really am not a band loyalist per se, and I never really have been, except for a few really good ones like Aviators. And so I ended up with this mishmash of random songs, but despite how popular or rare they might be, if I ever hear them, they bring back just such a rush of memories. And so after about 8 months of that, I started coming up with like little parody lyric ideas in my own head because I'd done a couple of those in high school. I actually rewrote, the very first song I ever rewrote was Don't You Forget About Me, the classic Breakfast 16 Candles. What movie was that from?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I want to say it was The Breakfast Club. Anyway, it's I don't even know who it was originally by. I heard the Hawk Nelson version. So anyway, it was Don't You Forget About Me, and I actually rewrote it as a prom song, which I actually finally re-recorded that and put that on my channel as well, because I went to a private school and we didn't have proms, because prom's a dirty word. So we had junior senior banquets, or JSB for short. So it was go to JSB with me, go, 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 go. And of course, like any other, guy trying to get the girl or get the love interest for a high school dance, I learned how to play the acoustic guitar to a certain degree. So I learned, I think, 6 chords, barely enough to do the song in its most remedial manner. And I pulled her aside one day after class, and yeah, it ended up working out. So that was the first song I rewrote, and I didn't really do much since then until I'm like, I can do lyrics, and it's fun. It's a nice little creative outlet. For those who don't know, I actually just graduated as an engineer, mechanical engineer from Sac State, California State University, Sacramento. So engineering is fun, but it doesn't offer a lot of creative opportunities in terms of right hemisphere operation. So I like music because it's a nice outlet. It's something totally different, at least in my brain. So I feel like it's a nice release, a nice relaxation after doing complex algorithms or calculus or other engineering formulas or Laplace transforms. And so it was nice, and it was really just kind of screwing around more than anything. Like I hear a song and I sing fake lyrics to my car radio and decide, maybe I'll record it, see if anyone else finds it interesting. And eventually that just sort of started snowballing.
Wow, that's actually pretty interesting. It's kind of cool how you got into it. I know you and I are involved in other projects of which we can't yet talk about, but do look forward to talking about those in the future.
Oh, yes.
So
how about you, Clockwork? Once you got a good brony podcast going, what were the things that went together into bringing Lunar Echoes into the place it was right now?
Oh gosh, there was a lot of things that went together to bring it into the place it is now. I guess I should start at the very beginning, just as a brief overview for anyone who has never heard of us before. We started in August of last year. Our very first podcast went up August 28th, 2013, a little after 4 p.m., after the very first recording was ever done.
Wow.
Yeah, I did it with my very first co-host, who is like one of the main co-hosts on the site right now, Lazy Chords. We kind of just did a quick hash out, did a couple things, got a couple people together to try and do different podcasts with. We got featured on Brony Time as panelists a little further into the podcast, and we were on podcasthobby.net. Well, I was on podcasthobby.net, not an affiliate with anything Pony, or a sponsor of our show. But they kind of broadcasted us out there and talked about the hobby there too. What really started it off, I guess, was by the time we got everything together after the first episode, we decided we needed a theme.
Mhm.
Because the first episode was just inaugural introductions to both of us, kind of like what we just did here.
Mhm.
And the theme was, I decided we wanted to be different than any other podcast. We needed a theme, and the theme was going to be the fans. The fans make this fandom, actually, so why not make the fans the focus?
Definitely.
And I don't actually see a lot of other podcasts talking about the fans or what they do. They talk a little bit about other fans, but they don't really get into depth. They don't usually bring too many people on. They usually talk to the creators of like big projects, but they don't talk to the smaller fans, like the artists who are on DeviantArt. They don't talk to some of the musicians because they're usually skipped over.
Yeah.
They don't talk to anybody who does the like little animations. They talk to the big projects. A lot of them do, but very few of them talk to the little projects, and that's kind of what I focus on. We got our second episode together, and we decided to do a brief review of the famous Flash animations out there, which that aired on September 10th, 2013. For anyone who's really curious, we did a quick review of everything from Dusk's Dawn to Derpy's Toy, which was the smaller animations, and we did a little overview of it. We decided that we needed to focus on it, and immediately following that, we did our first microcast.
Mhm.
We did a couple episodes beyond that. We did talk about the music. We talked a little bit about the analyst's point of view of characters in the main 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We talked about the analyst views of the main ponies of MLP up to season 3. And episodes 5 is really where our podcast took off. We contacted 2 artists right after being on Brony time with them.
Mhm.
And that was Rapido Star and Serial the Wolf, and they came on our show.
Very cool.
It certainly was. Okay, it was actually more than cool. It was awesome! But it was it was awesome. So right after that, I think it just started the way we changed the format, because right then and there, episode 5 was, it's not just me and Lazy Chords talking, it's me and Lazy Chords interviewing people, talking about their interactions with the fandom, occasionally going back to our old format, but trying to keep pace with the new fans' creations. We did talk about Nightmare Nights. We had a brief interview with the BronyNet and BronyTunes creators. We did a brief analysis of some episodes for season 4. We talked to 2 YouTube analysts, and we even did some holiday specials up until recently. And for anyone who wants to check us out, at the end of the program here, we'll give our web address, or you can just go to Google, not an affiliate, or Lunar Radio. I'm sure they'll have a link somewhere, and go to our Google page. More recently, though, I think the biggest change has just happened. For anyone who's just tuning in and has never heard us before, I had one co-host. His name is Lazy Chords. He's temporarily went on leave to pursue his studies and try and get back into college.
Yep.
And we all support him. We're all bronies. We all band together like brothers and sisters. We have one Bronita, Pega's sister. Well, she prefers Bronita, but
I like Bronita. That should be the new word.
It should be the new word. You hear that, fans? Bronita, not Pega's sister.
Bronita.
Exactly. So recently we had episode 15. Do you mind if I elaborate on that?
No, go on.
So essentially what we did was a brief review of 2 of the more recent episodes that we had both seen, and then halfway through the review, he announced that he was leaving the show. It wasn't quite a surprise because I already knew it was going to happen, but it happened on the show so that everyone could hear what was going on. It was really sad, so Lazy Chords is temporarily on leave. He's still involved with the project, he's still involved with the podcast, but for now he's gone. So in his place, I've decided to change the format again, and now I have...
me, Skybolt. At least for today.
and 3 others, which are Maybell, Blaze, and Sorix. And I may or may not have another one coming on board. It all depends. But we're going to do a rotation of co-hosts. Sometimes it may be me and one of the other co-hosts. Sometimes it may be me, Lazy Chords, and all of the co-hosts, if we can all organize one day to do it. Sometimes it may be 2 different co-hosts when I'm not available. But that's the brief format of it.
And talk about Odd Couple getting us all together.
Isn't that the truth? Everyone has a different schedule. Although, the good thing is that mostly everyone's on about the same time Saturday morning.
Of course, we have Saturday mornings open because that's Saturday morning cartoons. We all have that schedule blocked open for ourselves.
Exactly. So we all can watch a show and then immediately go talk about it on Skype, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Some of us have to wait a couple hours or even a day or two to see it, but we all eventually see the episode.
I know. Zyro, get it up on YouTube already. Gosh.
So we've talked about ourselves for a little bit here. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or plug?
No, we will have plenty of things to plug here pretty soon. Again, you can keep checking for us here on Lunar Radio. We're Lunar Echoes, the podcast on Lunar Radio, the network. So come back to hear more, and we will have some pretty exciting stuff for you guys over the coming months, so stay tuned.
Yep.
Winner of 15 Pony Awards and given 2 hooves up by Trottington Post, Any of the Hills, featuring Jennifer Haston, is being performed live now at the Bridal Way Opera House. Make sure you get your ticket today.
Thank you for listening.
You can contact us here at Lunar Echoes via our website,
https://site.google.com/site/Lunar Echoes Podcast/home.
You can contact us by email, as we always like hearing from our fans.
Also, if you want to help us brony on, please listen weekly on Ponyville Live every Friday around 8 p.m. on Lunar Radio.
Subscribe to us on Twitter, rate us on iTunes, and if you feel generous,
please consider donating to help us out. That button can be found on the links page of our website.
Thank you for listening, and stay pony,
my friends.